Richard Clark from John Carroll University conducted a study of the 2019 law enforcement deaths and found, among other things, that disproportionately suicide was a main cause. In fact, he went so far as to say a law enforcement suicide happens once every 17 hours. And this is further backed up by this graph presented by Andrew McAward from University of Chicago, which shows that among of a breakdown of what is causing law enforcement deaths, suicide disproportionately affects this. And this is due to a myriad of reasons, but most of them boil down to the mental health aspects of their job. Good afternoon. My name is Hunter Hayes.
I'm Gabriel Seni.
I'm Ekaterina Troutman.
And I'm Michael Conquo, and today we'll be addressing law enforcement officers and their issues with mental health. In terms of our research question, the question we'll be answering is, in what way is the mental health of U.S. law enforcement officers impacted by the strenuous tasks that they undertake? And our response to this question is that the mental health of U.S. Law enforcement officers is negatively affected by the different tasks that they perform. To start off, one U.S. law enforcement department that has had troubles with their mental health is the U.S. intelligence community. During their work, U.S. intelligence officers often confront ethical issues that can be detrimental towards their mental health, as they often question themselves. A major example of this occurring would be the Waco siege operation that happened back in 1993. According to Stuart Wright, a sociology professor at the Lamar University, he mentions how there's no greater example of misfeasance than the failure of the FBI to bring about a bloodless resolution to the 51-day standoff. The 51-day standoff between the FBI and Branch Davidians officially ended when the FBI launched a tear gas assault on the compound the Branch Davidians were in, and that led to a fire breaking out. And as you can see in this image here from the History Channel, you can truly see how destructive this fire was. In the end, 76 Branch Davidians were killed, many of whom were children. The amount of force that was used in this operation was completely excessive, and it led to a lot of the intelligence officers in this operation to question the ethicality of their work, leading to increased anxiety, internal conflict, and PTSD amongst them. U.S. intelligence officers are also negatively affected by the mistakes they make while they're on the job. Even the slightest mistake can lead to a vast amount of implications and consequences. A major instance of this would be the 9/11 intelligence failure. According to the American political scientist Amy Zegart, she notes that since the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, U.S. intelligence agencies have faced a firestorm of criticism. 9/11 was one of the worst tragedies to ever happen in U.S. history. And as you can see in this image from Alan Taylor, it's obvious to see how harmful this attack was towards the U.S. residents within this area. And so the fact that U.S. intelligence agencies were partially blamed for this made a lot of them feel like they actually contributed to this mass killing, leading to self-hate, guilt, and rumination over their past actions.
There are unlimited causes when it comes down to mental health for crime scene investigators. Sarah Sablon from the Oxford Academic elaborates on the trauma that CSIs face when she says, they may often come in contact with corpses, human remains, and other potentially shocking scenes in the autopsy room or on crime scenes. Seeing dead bodies and other potentially shocking scenes can have a huge mental impact on CSIs. Elizabeth Morahan from Murdoch University correspondingly says, crime scene investigators, however, interact with the crime scene more intensively and for an extended period of time. Crime scene investigators are regularly exposed to extreme weather conditions for long periods of time. Not only are they around corpses constantly, they have to work under potentially dangerous environments for long periods of time. Crime scene investigators are at risk of developing many different kinds of disorders while not on the job. Donnie Slack mentions the potential disorders they can develop when she says, they are likely afflicted with any variation of PTSD, STS, and/or VT. This showcases all the different disorders that they can develop when they are on the job and they decide this is the job for them. The plot graph here shows all the different causes of stress that a CSI worker may have. Stress levels range from a level 1 being the lowest and a level 7 being the highest. The two highest causes come from being at the workplace and from management and supervisors. They range from a level 3 to a level 5. General stress ranges from a level 3 to a level 4, and stress from personal reasons ranges from a level 2 to a level 3.5, further proving that most stress that CSIs have comes from being at work and not from other potential reasons.
Police officers suffer a significant and high emotional cost due to the pressure-filled nature of their work. Police officers face lots of public criticism. A great example of this comes from a psychologist in Serbia called Aruja Dan. She says a true story about one of her patients who ended his life due to the fact that he was recently diagnosed with depression. When the community found out about this, They raided his house so many times that he ended up having more depression, and this caused him to end himself. Police officers also have to deal with high elevated stress levels. Police officers, as Michael said, have to deal with unpredictable situations, and fast thinking is required. A great example of this is bomb threats. Police officers are the first to get to the scene, and they have to worry about public safety. Without police officers, many deaths could happen. Another reason why police officers have to deal with high elevated stress levels is shootings. The unpredictable situations that can happen in this example shows how police officers must maintain their calm and their mental state must be perfectly healthy. Police officers also have to deal with lots of unpaid overhours, as shown in this graph. The graph is showing the actual hours that they're working and the off hours, unpaid hours that have been working. The overhours cause many strains in relationships. These extra hours have caused police officers to not have seen their family recently. Police officers have been missing lots of family events such as holidays, family dinners, and these dinners pile up and cause certain relationships with family at home.
And our final area of research that we are going to dive in today is the United States Capitol Police. Now, while Gabriel, Michael, and Ekaterina's departments all suffer more constant attacks, there was one very notable attack that happened to the United States Capitol Police, and that was the January 6th attack. Now, as you can see in this picture, the January 6th attack was a brutal, violent attack on the United States Capitol, which forced the Capitol Police to defend our nation's capital. And furthermore, pointed out by Reed Ishmael in his peer-reviewed poem that he wrote in the Journal of the University of Chicago, these beatings occurred with things like flagpoles, barricades, and police shields that they themselves had brought to the Capitol that day to defend the Capitol. And these beatings, while occurring several physical ailments that would still live with these Capitol Police officers 2 years later, and also more issues relating to some of the sprays used by these people, they also led to, as everyone previously has mentioned, several psychological effects. Now, these psychological effects range from PTSD to depression, even in some cases, such as Jeffrey Smith's case, suicide, where this Capitol Police officer was so distraught about the lack of continuity in the Capitol Police that he decided to end his own life. But this attack did not happen in a bubble. As you can see, this man here, Senator Josh Hawley, is seen here actively encouraging the people who stormed the United States Capitol to go ahead and do it. And the Capitol Police officers are in charge of protecting these people, these congressmen. So when these congressmen come back to session, once all the tear gas and all the glass is cleared from the building, and hear these senators and representatives using the same rhetoric that these insurrectionists use, it can seem to be a moot point, which leads to several mental issues. And as I said, this does not happen in a vacuum. This was stirred on by politicians, and as Aziz Huq mentions, stirred on by a long-lasting standard of political hatred.
In terms of our resolution, we agreed that the mental health of U.S. law enforcement officers is negatively affected by the different tasks that they perform. And this is evident amongst U.S. intelligence officers, crime scene investigators, local police officers, and Capitol Police officers. And in terms of the long-term impact, we agreed that this negative effect on their mental health can lead to increases in the amount of mistakes that they make while they're on the job, and it can also increase in the amount of the retirement rate within U.S. law enforcement. Thank you.
Excuse me. All right, so we'll start with you, Kat. Can you tell me how you decided to incorporate, let's pick Michael's paper in your overall presentation?
Well, we decided to include Michael's perspective by showcasing how the errors and the ethical dilemmas of U.S. intelligence officers can have a negative mental effect on them.
Okay. Hunter, can you give an example of the way that your thinking changed as a result of the research that you guys all did?
So in doing my own research for this, of course, I was aware of my own department's mental health and sometimes physical health issues, but I was not nearly aware to the scale I was of, for example, Michael's intelligence service department, how they were negatively affected by their jobs. So our group research really helped me understand the broadness of this issue.
Okay. Michael, was there an argument that any of you left out of the presentation, and then if so, why?
We decided to leave out my point about how the environment that U.S. intelligence officers work in can cause them to develop a deceptive mindset. Although it provided an alternative perspective, we felt like it didn't really mesh well with the rest of the stuff that we were talking about, and it would have caused us to run out of time if we elaborated on it.
All right. And Gabe, reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact of your overall understanding of all this?
Reflecting on my colleagues' work, Hunters definitely changed my perspective because he talked about a very recent event, which makes it more relevant about the January 6th event and how recent it was and how it affected them both physically, but especially mentally, that some of them even have PTSD and trauma and some of them even ended their lives.